The earth-shattering roar of the blood dragon tore through space, rising to meet the tiny silhouette of a lone warrior plunging headlong into its deadly maw. There is no turning back. This frenzied assault, is it ultimately the desperate struggle of an apocalypse survivor, or simply the absolute end for both heroes? High above the carnage, the true masters of this chaos watch the world burn in silence. The 6 demon gods have been summoned, and their monstrous presence alone is enough to tear reality apart. On a crumbling bridge, one man sits waiting as a wall of water looms on the horizon. This is the perishing sea, a wave of pure destruction that doesn't leave a single survivor in its wake. Saehoon, humanity's last blacksmith, watches the end of everything approach with a strange calmness. He's battered and bloody, but all he can do now is let out a tired, final curse. He reaches into his jacket, pulling out the one thing he has left to gamble with. Blue sparks dance across his fingers as he prepares his final creation. It's a bond stone, a crystal he poured his entire life into, and it's finally ready to be used. The gem glows with a brilliant, blinding light as it resonates with his magic. He grips it tight, knowing there's only one way to trigger its hidden power. With a final surge of mana, he prepares to strike the stone. The air warps as the crystal's energy starts to spiral out of control. He brings his hammer down, shattering the stone and the laws of reality along with it. Saehoon can't help but smile. If he's going out on his own terms. His eyes reflect the dying world one last time as a blinding white light swallows him whole. He looks at the broken blade in his hand, a symbol of all the gear he's fixed for ungrateful heroes. He holds the shards up to the sky, letting the magic of the bond stone take hold. Everything goes black as he falls into a bottomless, watery void. The sounds of battle fade away, replaced by a heavy, crushing silence as he sinks. Suddenly, a familiar sound rings out, the chime of a system notification. A reflection of a blade flickers in his eye as the world starts to reset. Blue screens flood his vision, announcing that his hidden imagery skill has finally manifested. He finds himself sitting in a wasteland, with a massive sword standing behind him like a monument. Even in this reset, the silhouettes of the demon gods loom in the distance. He thinks back to the monsters that humanity was never meant to defeat. But mostly, he thinks about the people who were supposed to save them. He remembers the arrogant faces of the heroes he once called allies. They were strong, sure, but they were also incredibly selfish. Saehoon wipes the grime from his face, recalling every time they looked down on him. To them, he was just a shuttle, a guy who existed only to sharpen their blades and stay out of the way. Yeom Songha, better known as the Mad Dog, was the loudest and most ungrateful of them all. He was part of a trio of legendary warriors who refused to work together until it was too late. The Mad Dog lived for nothing but the thrill of mindless slaughter and chaos. Then there was the Explosive Dog, a woman who treated every battle like her own personal playground. And the Ice Dog, a cold-blooded fighter who didn't care who lived or died as long as the job was done. They failed because they were broken, and the entire world paid the price for their egos. In the end, even their combined power wasn't enough to stop the inevitable wave of destruction. Saehoon's focus narrows as the memory of their defeat burns into his mind. He sits on the cracked earth one last time, surrounded by the shadows of the heroes he's about to change forever. Yeom Songha, the Mad Dog, drops to one knee, his armor shattered and his strength completely spent. The silver-haired hero with the mask looks back at the blacksmith, her expression unreadable behind the metal. Saehoon closes his eyes, accepting the end as the world falls apart around him. He sits alone in the wreckage, a heavy sword planted firmly in the ground like a final marker. His face is covered in blood and grime, the weight of 50 years of failure finally catching up to him. The legendary heroes who were supposed to save the world are nothing but battered shadows of their former selves now. Saehoon collapses onto the cracked earth, his body reaching its absolute limit as the wave approaches. Even as he falls, his hand stays fixed on the hilt of his last and greatest creation. He grips his blacksmith hammer one last time, prepared to make a final stand against destiny. He stands tall amidst the ruins, a weary veteran who's lost everything but his pride as a maker. On the shattered highway, the last remnants of humanity's hope wait for the inevitable end. The ornate blades he forged stand silent in the dust, symbols of a life spent serving ungrateful legends. He looks off into the distance, sensing the approach of the world's final breath. The perishing sea rises up like a wall, ready to swallow the world whole. He pulls out the bond stone, pressing it against his chest with both hands as his last gamble. Blue electricity crackles between his fingers as the stone starts to react to his waning mana. The crystal pulses with a blinding light, its ancient energy finally awakening. Saehoon stares at the glowing gem, knowing this is his only shot at changing the future. A massive magical crest flares to life above him, depicting the hammers and wings of his craft. He raises the stone, ready to trigger the forbidden technique he spent a lifetime preparing. With a final, desperate roar, he swings his hammer down with everything he's got left. The impact sends shockwaves through the air just as the massive wave crashes down on him. He puts every ounce of his soul into that single, perfect strike. The stone shatters, releasing a tidal wave of mana that counters the oncoming destruction. He holds a shard of his broken blade toward the sky, a final act of defiance against fate. Saehoon grits his teeth against the pain as the world starts to dissolve into a sea of light. He lets out a final, hollow laugh as the perishing sea finally consumes his body. He sinks into a cold, dark void, the shards of his work drifting alongside him. A faint smile touches his lips as he lets the darkness take over, his mind finally at peace. In his final moment of consciousness, the reflection of a blade flashes in his iris. A black-hilted dagger hangs suspended in the light, the key to his impossible return. System messages flood his vision, announcing the activation of his legendary imagery skill, Return to Origin. He opens his eyes to find himself back in the academy, his younger self reflected in the forge's heat. Saehoon blinks in shock, his mind racing as he tries to process the impossible reality. He's back in a bustling blacksmith workshop, the familiar clang of hammers on anvils filling the air. This is it. He's really back at the Babel Academy entrance exam, 31 years in the past. Professor Kim In-cheol looks over from his station, wondering why the boy has suddenly stopped. The rhythmic strike of metal on metal is a sound he thought he'd never hear again. Saehoon stands amidst the heat and smoke, realizing he's been given a second chance to fix the world. He grips his hammer, feeling the raw strength of his younger, unscarred body. A confident smirk plays on his face. This time, he isn't going to be anyone's puppet. Kim In-cheol is taken aback by the sudden, intense shift in the boy's presence as Saehoon gets back to work. Kim In-cheol watches the candidates with a sharp, discerning eye, looking for even the smallest hint of untapped potential. The steady rhythm of a hammer against steel rings out, more precise and powerful than any other sound in the workshop. The professor crosses his arms, his focus narrowing on the student who has suddenly changed his entire demeanor. In the middle of the Babel Academy exam hall, dozens of aspiring blacksmiths struggle to prove their worth under pressure. Each strike of Saehoon's hammer is perfect, landing with a weight that speaks of decades of hard-earned experience. The candidates nearby can't help but stop and stare, their own work forgotten in the wake of such raw, unexpected talent. Lee Saehoon stands before his anvil, his posture no longer that of a nervous student, but of a seasoned master. He prepares for his next series of strikes, completely undisturbed by the growing crowd of stunned spectators. What the hell is with this guy? One of the other students shouts, unable to hide his shock and rising jealousy. Kim In-cheol steps closer, his curiosity piqued by the sheer intensity radiating from Saehoon's station. The veteran smith remains silent, but his eyes reveal a growing respect for the boy's unwavering, professional focus. Hans Barmit grits his teeth, his pride wounded as the shuttle he used to look down on suddenly outshines everyone in the room. Shards of excess metal fly through the air like sparks as the raw material begins to take a refined shape. Saehoon's gaze is fixed on the glowing metal, his mind calculating every vibration and temperature shift with ease. He moves with a fluidity that suggests he's done this thousands of times before, because in another life, he has. His eyes flare with a golden light as he begins to pour his newly awakened mana into the forging process. The heat from the forge intensifies, swirling around him as if responding to his very will and presence. To the onlookers, it looks like Saehoon is dancing with the flames, a breathtaking spectacle of light and shadow. The entire workshop falls silent, the only sound left being the crackle of Saehoon's forge and the pulse of his mana. He reaches into the searing heat without hesitation, guiding the mana-infused shards into the core of the glowing blade. The students watching from the sidelines are breathless, witnessing a high-level technique far beyond their understanding. A vibrant aura of multicolored mana erupts from the anvil, enveloping Saehoon in a pillar of raw, magical power. Is he really just an applicant? One student gasps, shielding his eyes from the blinding radiance of the forge. Even Kim In-cheol finds himself taking a half-step back, stunned by the sheer volume of mana being channeled so effortlessly. A thin, confident smile plays on Saehoon's lips as he feels the familiar weight of a masterwork beginning to form. He is completely in his element now, the fire of the forge a reflection of the fire burning within his soul. The whispers of the crowd fade into the background as Saehoon enters a state of perfect, transcendental concentration. The metal glows with an ethereal light, its surface shimmering with the promise of something truly extraordinary. Clang! The sound of the hammer strike reverberates through the hall, solid, resonant, and final. He swings his hammer with a focused fury, each blow refining the soul of the weapon he's creating. Sparks of mana explode upon impact, scattering across the stone floor like a cascade of falling stars. Saehoon looks up for a split second, a look of pure, unadulterated confidence shining in his eyes. Sweat beads on his forehead from the crushing heat, but his hands remain as steady as a mountain. The hammer descends once more, striking the multicolored bar with a precision that defies all logic. He pauses for a moment, his muscles tensing as he prepares for the final, most delicate stage of the forge. His jaw is set tight, every ounce of his being dedicated to proving that he is no longer the weakling they once knew. He grips the handle of his hammer so tightly that his knuckles turn white, blood from the overexertion dripping onto the floor. With a powerful swing from his shoulders, he drives the heavy hammer down for the finishing blow. The final impact is so intense that it seems to ripple through the very air of the workshop. Saehoon carefully lifts the cooling metal, inspecting the curvature and the unique grain of his handiwork. He squints one eye to check the alignment, ensuring the edge is as straight and sharp as his new resolve. He exhales a long, shaky breath, the physical toll of the intense process finally beginning to show on his young face. Saehoon clenches his trembling, soot-stained fist, the adrenaline of the forge still coursing through his veins. He holds up the masterpiece, a blade that shimmers with an otherworldly light as a system notification confirms his success. Armament 5-color fire blade has been completed. The other applicants stand frozen, their mouths agape as they witness a level of craftsmanship that shouldn't be possible for someone their age. Kim In-cheol watches with a satisfied smirk, knowing he's just witnessed history, while Hans Barmit stumbles back in disbelief, his arrogance completely shattered. Hans can only stare in horror, his mind unable to reconcile the loser Saehoon he once knew with the genius is currently standing before him. The golden light of the setting sun spills into the workshop, marking the end of a life-changing entrance exam for everyone present. Later, in a quiet office, Kim In-cheol observes the young man with a newfound intensity, trying to pierce through his mysterious exterior. The veteran smith paces the room, the shadow of his large frame stretching across the floor toward where Saehoon sits composed and silent. A heavy silence hangs between them, the air thick with unspoken questions about where such incredible skill could have possibly come from. Kim In-cheol rubs his temple, exhaling a weary sigh as he grapples with the sheer impossibility of what he just witnessed in the exam hall. Saehoon remains calm, his amber eyes reflecting a depth of experience that far exceeds his youthful appearance. High above the city, the spires of Babel Academy reach toward the crimson sky, a symbol of the power Saehoon intends to reclaim. A faint, knowing smile touches Saehoon's lips. The first step of his long journey back to the top has been a resounding success. With his hands still wrapped in bandages from the heat of the forge, he stands tall, ready to face whatever challenges this new life throws at him. Professor Kim In-cheol stares him down with a look that would make most kids fold. Lee Saehoon can hardly believe it. He's actually 31 years in the past. He remembers the so-called heroes of his era, the ones who let the world burn because they couldn't work together. Back then, he was just a low-tier blacksmith serving these selfish legends. He clenches his fist, feeling the weight of 50 years of failure. This time, he's not going to be anyone's stepping stone. He looks at the professor and gives a confident smile. He shows a hand scarred by work he hasn't even done yet in this timeline. He reaches out to lock hands with the man who will decide his future. A system prompt pops up. He's already established a bond with the legendary proctor. This is Babel Academy, the floating fortress where humanity's strongest are forged. Saehoon walks through the halls, adjusting his tie like he's already won. He enters the testing room for the technology department, where his journey truly restarts. He takes his spot at the workbench, feeling the eyes of other students on him. He can feel a sharp gaze cutting right through him. A pair of intense blue eyes is watching his every move. It's one of the Academy's golden boys, already acting like he's superior. Saehoon doesn't give him a second thought. He's got bigger fish to fry. He thinks about his ultimate goal. He needs to find Ryu Eun-ha, the S-rank hero known as the Weapon Eater. The thought of her makes him break a cold sweat. In the future, she was his most loyal customer, but she was also a literal monster. Their fates have always been tied together. He flashes back to her sitting defeated in the ruins of the world. She looked so small and broken in the pouring rain. He approached her one last time before the end came for them both. She had lost everything, her strength, her pride, her weapons. He looked at her and made a silent promise to change things. He stood over her, the last blacksmith for the last hero. He pulls himself back to the present. Time to focus. Kim In-cheol steps into the center of the hall to start the exam. The other students are shaking, but Saehoon is just waiting. The professor ignites a ball of fire to show the power they're dealing with. He motions toward the crates of materials. It's a mountain of raw ore and high-quality resonance stones. He tells them to grab what they need and show him what they're worth. The blonde kid gives Saehoon a smug look as he walks past. Saehoon just ties his apron, completely unfazed by the competition. He's about to show them what 50 years of experience looks like. Hans Barmet is already acting like he's the valedictorian. He reaches into the pile for the rarest stone he can find. He holds up a high-tier blue ore, grinning like the test is already over. Hans Barmet starts his process, surrounding the high-tier ore with mana circles that scream, "Look at me." He pours everything he's got into the resonance, trying to prove he's a genius. While Hans is busy showing off, Saehoon picks up a handful of basic materials, things most people wouldn't even look twice at. Hans keeps going, his confidence reaching a fever pitch as the ore starts to glow. He gestures broadly, making sure everyone in the room is watching his performance. A massive chunk of red resonance stone starts to hum with power. Hans gives Saehoon a side eye and a smirk, thinking the competition is already over. But Saehoon isn't even looking at him. He's focusing on the heat, his eyes reflecting a flame no one else can see yet. Suddenly, Saehoon ignites his mana, and the air in the room shifts. This isn't student-level stuff. The system kicks in as he equips the flame-bearing iron to his right arm. His limb is instantly engulfed in a violent, controlled fire. Hansa's smug expression vanishes as he realizes he's no longer the center of attention. Saehoon reaches out, the heat from his arm making the very air ripple and distort. He begins the resonance process, the basic materials in front of him starting to react to the intense heat. The proctors, including Ryu Eun-ha, lean in. They can't believe the level of precision coming from a kid. A small explosion of light and heat signals a perfect ignition. Saehoon's arm is a blur of fire as he guides the materials through the forge. He's not just making a weapon, he's performing high-level alchemy in seconds. The proctors are stunned. Even the grizzled veteran Kim In-cheol looks impressed. The processing finishes, and Saehoon pulls a sleek, finished product from the light. Professor Kim and Ryu Eun-ha are left speechless. The gap in skill is undeniable. He presents the fire-accumulating sheath, a masterpiece created from junk. Hans is shaking. He doesn't understand how someone using trash could outshine his premium ore. He stares at his own glowing ore, his world starting to crumble. He tries to push the resonance even further, but he's losing control. He screams out, his mana flaring wildly as the high tier ore starts to crack. The energy becomes too much, and the entire workspace is engulfed in a chaotic blue light. His eyes widen as he realizes the magnitude of his mistake. The ore shatters in a blinding burst of energy. Shards of high-quality stone rain down on the floor, useless junk now. Han stands there, covered in soot and shame, staring at the ruin of his masterpiece. Saehoon just looks on with a calm expression, having seen this coming. He looks down at his own work, satisfied with the result. He grips his arm, which is still smoking from the intense heat he generated. One of the proctors calls out Professor Kim, questioning if he's being too hard on the kids. Professor Kim walks toward Hans, looking disappointed but not surprised. He looks at Hans, who is trying to find an excuse for his failure. Then he turns his attention to Saehoon's work, a sword and sheath that radiate power. Saehoon meets his gaze with total confidence. He knows he's the best one here. He looks down at the sleek, 5-color fire blade resting on the table. The other students are whispering, unable to process what they just witnessed. They can't wrap their heads around how someone from the weakest department could do this. Ryu Eunha stares at the sheath Saehoon produced, her red eyes gleaming with an intense, almost unsettling interest. She runs her fingers along the intricate, glowing patterns, feeling the high-quality resonance coming from the material. She lifts the piece, her expression showing a mix of shock and pure fascination at the impossible level of craftsmanship. Suddenly, she spins around and points directly at Saehoon, demanding to know exactly how a student could achieve such a result. Her excitement quickly turns into a frantic, almost obsessive energy as she examines the work even closer, nearly losing her composure. Professor Kim In-cheol watches her bizarre display with a bewildered expression, barely able to process her sudden request to lick it. As the sun begins to set over the academy grounds, the tall buildings are bathed in a warm, orange glow. Lee Saehoon walks away from the testing hall, the weight of his first success light on his shoulders as the day ends. He breaks into a satisfied grin, laughing quietly to himself, a sight that makes passing students give him a wide berth. Closing his eyes, he takes a deep breath, letting the cool evening air clear his mind of the day's stress. His thoughts drift back to a distant memory, to a cold battlefield where everything he once knew was on the line. The image of Arya Myers flashes in his mind, her eyes cold and determined behind a tactical headset, just as he remembers her from before. He recalls the name Barmet, associated with a blacksmith whose flawed creations left nothing but destruction and injury in their wake. Shaking off the bitter memories, Saehoon continues down the academy path, his resolve strengthening with every step. He stops for a moment to look at the vibrant sunset, a lone silhouette against the dying light, knowing his true journey has just begun. The scene shifts to a massive, ancient tower pulsing with magical energy, a focal point of power within the academy. Within its hidden chambers, dark figures are seen gathering around a swirling orb of concentrated, ominous energy. The perspective moves to a vast, open arena where the next stage of the evaluation is set to take place. Saehoon and a group of fellow students arrive at the arena stands, ready to witness a demonstration of raw power. He stands tall among his peers, his presence calm and commanding compared to the nervous cadets around him. An announcer steps into the spotlight, his voice booming through the stadium speakers to introduce the challenge. A high-tech combat golem is deployed into the ring, its heavy armor designed to spar with even C-rank heroes. Jake Myers, the Academy's blonde-haired valedictorian, steps forward with an air of effortless superiority. The two opponents face each other from opposite sides of the circular arena as the crowd watches in anticipation. Jake assumes a fighting stance, his eyes sharp and focused as he prepares to show off his physical strength. The golem's optics flare with a menacing red light as its combat systems identify the new target. With a sharp signal from the announcer, the match officially begins. The golem lunges forward with incredible speed, its heavy limbs cutting through the air toward Jake. Jake reacts instantly, his body a blur as he narrowly avoids the machine's thunderous opening strike. He counters with a powerful energy-infused blow, the impact sending a shockwave rippling across the arena sand. The golem staggers back but quickly recovers, meeting Jake's next move with its own heavy metallic defense. Jake moves with the grace of a trained warrior, spinning and weaving through the golem's deliberate attacks. He slides across the floor, repositioning himself and searching for a fatal flaw in the machine's defense. With a sudden burst of speed, Jake leaps high into the air, coming down like a meteor. His face is a mask of intense concentration, his eyes locked onto his mechanical opponent's weak points. The impact is thunderous, sending a cloud of dust and sparks flying as his punch connects with the golem's torso. The machine's armor buckles under the sheer force, circuits frying as the energy discharge ripples through its frame. From the sidelines, Lee Saehoon watches the fight with a critical, calculating eye, unimpressed by the spectacle. The battle continues at a breakneck pace, with Jake dodging and striking with lethal, practiced precision. Sensing victory, Jake's smirk returns, his eyes glowing with an eerie, golden light as he prepares the final move. With a devastating overhead smash, he slams the golem into the ground, completely shattering its internal components. Pieces of the mechanical beast are scattered across the arena, its glowing eyes finally going dark in defeat. The severed head of the combat golem rolls across the arena floor, its glowing red optics finally flickering out in total defeat. The audience is left in a state of stunned silence, the students barely able to believe the level of physical power they just witnessed. Jake Myers waves to the cheering crowd with a confident, almost arrogant smile, basking in the glory of his decisive victory. From his seat in the stands, Lee Saehoon watches the display with a calm, analytical gaze, noting every detail of Jake's performance. Erika Inoue walks past the other students, her expression cold and unreadable as she prepares to enter the ring for her own turn. Saehoon's eyes narrow as he senses an immense, sharp mana radiating from her, a pressure that demands his full attention. He watches her from behind, intrigued by the silent, focused intensity of her gait as she carries a small birdcage. Erika stands in the center of the arena, a petite figure dwarfed by the massive, high-tech combat golem standing before her. Without a word, she unlocks the birdcage, allowing a single black crow with a glowing blue eye to take flight into the arena air. A close-up of Erika's face reveals her right eye glowing with a sharp, ethereal blue light as she gives a simple, quiet command, "Go." She stands motionless as the crow circles above, its presence feeling far more menacing than its small size would suggest. From a high vantage point, the arena looks small as the crow descends toward the mechanical giant, a dark shadow against the white sand. The combat golem activates its defensive protocols immediately, raising its heavy shields to block the incoming avian threat. Erika's expression remains stoic, her lips barely moving as she perfectly synchronizes her mana with her familiar. Suddenly, the crow erupts into a mass of dark energy, its form twisting as it prepares a devastating magical strike. The bird transforms into a massive, armored construct of shadow and metal, its wings spanning wide as it unleashes its true power. It strikes with a speed that defies its massive size, its talons wreathed in black mana as they tear through the air with lethal intent. A massive explosion of energy rocks the entire arena, sending a shockwave that rattles the spectator stands and kicks up a cloud of dust. Blue electricity crackles across the golem's chest as the bird's strike pierces straight through its reinforced, high-grade armor. The mechanical giant is completely overwhelmed, its internal systems overloading as it's forced into the ground by the weight of the attack. As the dust settles, the arena falls silent once more, the massive golem lying broken and smoking in the center of the ring. Erika stands calmly amidst the destruction, her crow returning to perch near her as its blue mana flames slowly dissipate. The crowd erupts into a deafening roar of cheers and applause, completely captivated by Erika's overwhelming display of magic. Saehoon can't help but smirk to himself, acknowledging the incredible power of his peer. Ha, damn it. Erika. Ludwig Schubert sits in his high chair, overseeing the demonstration with a critical eye. The crowd is going wild, with freshmen and upperclassmen alike glued to the spectacle. Lee Saehoon stands alone in the center of the arena, holding a weapon that looks far too high quality for a regular student. He's brought out two items he forged, a 5-color fire blade and a rare-grade fire accumulating sheet. Up in the stands, Hans Barmett and his cronies are already writing the kid off as a fluke. His opponent is a massive combat automaton, backed by a proctor ready to put the boy's skills to the test. Saehoon drops into a low stance, eyes locked onto his target. Mana starts to surge through the blade, heating up the resonance stones embedded in the hilt. The air around him ripples as 5 distinct colors of flame begin to spiral into existence. He pivots with fluid motion, the flames following the arc of his body as he builds momentum. For Saehoon, this isn't just an exam, it's the first step in rewriting a dark future. He grips the hilt tight, the weapon pulsing with intense heat and glowing mana. His eyes sharpen as he identifies the exact weakness in the machine's defense. The automaton senses the danger and deploys a heavy-duty mana shield. But Saehoon isn't slowing down for a second. Jake Myers and the other top-tier cadets stop their chatter, realizing this isn't a normal display. A single, explosive strike slams directly into the center of the barrier. Dust and debris fill the air as the sound of the impact echoes through the entire stadium. Saehoon calmly clicks the blade back into its sheath, finishing the movement. He's barely even out of breath despite the power he just unleashed. When the smoke clears, a massive trench is carved right through the floor, and the robot is in pieces. A bit later, the click of heels down a quiet hallway signals a visitor. Saehoon is resting in a private lounge, trying to recover some of his spent mana. Ryu Eun-ha, the dean herself, walks in. She's an S-rank hero famously known as the Weapon Eater. He greets her casually, not at all intimidated by her rank or reputation. She stares him down, clearly intrigued by the freshman who just demolished the school's top test bot. They start talking shop, but Saehoon has a very specific reason for this meeting. Suddenly, her stomach growls. In the future, her appetite for mana-rich weapons was legendary. She tries to play it off, looking completely embarrassed that her secret is out. Saehoon just blinks. He knew she was a weapon eater, but he didn't expect her to be this hungry. A system notification pops up. A bond has officially been established with Ryu Eun-ha. He reaches out and takes her hands, catching her completely off guard. A bright blue light begins to glow between them as the bond activates. Using his unique skill, he starts extracting a special material directly from their new connection. Out of thin air, a jagged red orb forms in his palm, the legendary gluttony iron. Eun-ha pulls back, looking flustered and confused about what just happened to her. As the sun sets over the floating academy, word of the technology department's valedictorian spreads fast. Saehoon is escorted through the grand hallways of the academy's central building. Ludwig watches him closely, realizing the power balance in the school is about to shift. They stop in front of a massive, ornate set of double doors. Saehoon smirks as the doors open. This is exactly where he wanted to be. He steps inside the office, ready to meet the one person who can truly help him forge a new world. Ludwig Schubert waits for Saehoon to approach, a regal aura surrounding him as he considers the boy's potential. Saehoon can't help but smirk, knowing things are already going better than in his previous life. Ludwig gets straight to the point, offering 2 distinct rewards for his record-breaking performance during the exam. Saehoon pauses, hand on his chin as he weighs his options. 2 rewards is a generous start. The headmaster's office is as grand as Saehoon remembers, filled with the weight of centuries of history. He walks out with a mysterious black box and a white horn, materials that any blacksmith would kill for. A satisfied smile crosses his face. With these, his plans are truly in motion. Ludwig watches him leave, his eyes narrow and calculating as he wonders just what kind of monster he's led into his school. Saehoon examines the items one last time. For a starting kit, they really are perfect. As he walks through the courtyard, Saehoon reflects on his recent display of power, wondering if he overplayed his hand too early. The floating Academy of Babel is a marvel of engineering, a place where the next generation of heroes is forged. Meanwhile, Hans Barmet is busy trying to climb the social ladder, blowing off his classmates for a chance to suck up to upperclassmen. He stops mid-sentence, a look of pure confusion washing over his face as he senses a sudden shift in the room's energy. Saehoon pushes the doors open, his presence immediately silencing the group of chattering students. He fixes them with a cold, piercing gaze, one eye glowing with a faint, predatory light. The classroom goes dead silent. The arrogant attitude Hans was projecting just moments ago vanishes instantly. Hans is practically vibrating with nerves, unable to understand how a tech student could have such an overwhelming aura. The heavy thud of boots announces the arrival of their instructor, a man built like a brick wall. Ma Guangsu steps to the front of the room, carrying a heavy white container with ease. He drops it onto the table and tells everyone to listen up. It's time for introductions. He opens the box to reveal a cache of resonance stones, each one pulsing with raw magical energy. One by one, the students are called up to test their affinity with the materials. Ma Guangsu draws a heavy training blade, showing them the standard they're expected to meet. Saehoon watches from the back, his expression unreadable as he analyzes the instructor's technique and the quality of the iron. On the training ground, the shadows of the students stretch out as they prepare their various weapons. Hans steps up first, eager to prove his worth after the humiliation he felt in the classroom. He tries to channel mana into his sword, but the feedback is more than he can handle, leaving him looking like an amateur. Back in the lecture hall, Saehoon finds the basic curriculum a total drag. He's already decades ahead of this stuff. He stands up to take his turn, ignoring the whispers and judgmental looks from the combat cadets. He picks up a resonance stone, seeing his own reflection in the faceted surface. His eyes narrow. This is child's play for a master of his caliber. Outside, the Academy's massive white wings catch the sunlight as it floats high above the ocean. The students can't stop talking about him, convinced that the recent surge in high-quality equipment is all thanks to Saehoon. Their classmates agree, noting that the Academy's arsenal has never looked quite this impressive. The other students can only gossip in the hallways, wondering if the rumors about his freakish talent are actually true. In the center of the hall stands a legendary monument, a shield protected by a ring of ancient, holy blades. Erika Inoue, the sorcery genius, stares at the display with a look of intense focus. She's joined by Jake Myers, the combat prodigy, as they discuss the sudden appearance of a new rival. Elsewhere, a massive forge bellows to life, signaling the start of a serious project. Saehoon wipes the sweat from his brow, his heart racing as he feels the heat of the fire for the first time in years. In the workshop, a fellow student asks if he managed to time the tempering process correctly. He's surrounded by blades of all shapes and sizes, but he's only interested in forging something that can change the fate of the world. In the intense heat of the forge, Saehoon's hand grips the hammer tightly as mana surges through his arm. He pauses for a moment, his eyes fixed on the glowing metal as he contemplates his next strike. With a powerful grunt, he brings the hammer down, the sound of iron on iron echoing through the workshop. A fellow student watches from the side, a simple training sword slung over his shoulder. Saehoon wipes the sweat from his neck, the physical toll of forging a high-level item already beginning to show. He leans over the workbench, his gaze intense as he examines the black hexagonal material he received as a reward. If it's necessary for smithing, then I have to do it, the student remarks, curious about Saehoon's dedication. A confident smirk tugs at Saehoon's lips. He knows exactly what this material is capable of. For a fleeting second, his current self and the master blacksmith he once was seem to merge in the forge's light. Respectfully, Saehoon gives a small bow to the student, acknowledging the advice he's been given. He stands tall, listening as the student shares more tips about the nuances of forging with high mana materials. In his mind, Saehoon analyzes the student's technique, noting that he's wasting far too much mana on each strike. Having finished his session, Saehoon leaves the workshop, his mind already on his next goal. Later, dressed in the formal Babel Academy uniform, he carries himself with a quiet, undeniable authority. He is suddenly intercepted by Erika Inoue, her expression cold and unreadable as she blocks his path. They stand on the platform, the tension between them drawing the attention of other students passing by. Erika stares him down, while a nearby student looks on in shock, sensing the sudden shift in the atmosphere. "Where are you going?" she asks, her voice sharp and demanding an answer. The student beside her is clearly intimidated by the confrontation, his eyes darting between the two. Saehoon doesn't back down, meeting her gaze as they begin to walk together through the academy corridors. Erika glances back, her sharp eyes scanning for any eavesdroppers as they move toward a more private area. Saehoon remains silent, his expression a mask of calm as he waits to see what the girl wants. As they walk, a student hides behind a nearby pillar, desperately calling out for Lady Erika to wait. They reach an open courtyard, and Saehoon lets out a thoughtful hum as he considers her next move. Without a word, Erika reaches into her jacket, her movements deliberate and full of poise. She produces a black envelope sealed with wax, surrounded by a faint, shimmering aura of mana. She extends the invitation to him, her eyes challenging him to accept whatever is inside. Saehoon takes the envelope and tears through the magical seal, the paper shredding like actual chains. He looks at the contents, while Erika crosses her arms, a triumphant smirk appearing on her face. The image of Erika is framed by broken chains, symbolizing the weight and secrecy of the message she's delivered. On the ground, the torn pieces of the envelope reveal the word noblesse in elegant, dark lettering. Erika's gaze is piercing, her face a picture of high society grace and hidden agendas. The halls of the academy are filled with the constant chatter of students as rumors of their meeting begin to spread. Saehoon and Erika continue their walk through the academy's lush grounds, heading toward the edge of the campus. Saehoon looks around cautiously, sensing that they are being watched as they approach a secluded clearing. In the distance, they see a group of people waiting for them beneath the shade of the ancient trees. Saehoon stops in his tracks, surprised to see two imposing figures standing ready to meet them. They are met by Ma Guangsu and another official in a long trench coat, both of whom seem to be overseeing a trial. Hans Barmet, the arrogant red-haired student, stands nearby with a smug grin, clearly enjoying the situation. The instructor in the trench coat signals for the demonstration to begin with a swift motion of his hand. Hans immediately drops to one knee, slamming his hand onto the ground to channel his mana. A web of glowing energy erupts from his palm, and a spectral spider begins to weave its way across the field. Hans Barmet grinds his teeth, his face slick with sweat as he pours every ounce of his mana into maintaining the delicate spell. The spectral spider at the heart of his web glows with a blinding, white-hot intensity, vibrating with unstable energy. From above, the glowing web looks like a trap, with Hans at one end and the academy official watching from the other. Breathless and trembling, Hans looks up, his arrogance briefly replaced by the sheer exhaustion of the feat. Without a word, Erika in no way steps forward, her hand reaching out to touch the shimmering red lines of the spell. "You all will start in the basic class," the official declares coldly, his eyes fixed on the students as they recover from the exertion. Erika remains composed, her eyes closed in a moment of deep focus as she prepares to demonstrate her own prowess. Like a ghost passing through a physical barrier, she moves across the web, her very presence causing the mana to ripple and dissolve. The onlookers are stunned by her speed, realizing that she didn't just cross the web, she dismantled the entire spell formula and collapsed it. She looks back with a calm, almost indifferent expression, as if the complex magical feat was nothing more than a simple stroll. Ma Guangsu and the other official stand in silence, their eyes fixed on the extraordinary talent being displayed before them. The official in the trench coat narrows his eyes, his gaze sharp as he observes every detail of the student's performance. Now it is Saehoon's turn. He steps onto the field, his expression one of quiet, unwavering confidence. He drops into a low crouch, his hand hovering over the red web as he hums thoughtfully, analyzing the flow of mana. Suddenly, a whirlwind of energy erupts around him, fire and mana swirling into a violent vortex centered on a dark object. Saehoon remains perfectly still at the center of the storm, the glowing web beneath him beginning to crack under the pressure. When the official moves to intervene, Erika raises a hand to stop him, her voice firm as she tells him to leave him be. Saehoon's hand slams down, wreathed in a brilliant, scorching flame that contrasts sharply with the cold light of the web. A massive explosion of fire and light tears through the air, completely obliterating the spectral spider and the web it wove. In the aftermath, Saehoon remains knelt in a circle of scorched earth, the heat of his power still radiating through the clearing. He slowly clenches his fist, the remaining sparks of fire dancing around his hand as the demonstration concludes. Looking up, he offers a small, knowing smile, his eyes shining with the secret knowledge of a master regressor. As he stands and begins to walk away, small tongues of flame continue to flicker at his heels, a testament to his power. With Erika and the others following behind, Saehoon leaves the field, having made it clear that he is no ordinary student. Saehoon stands in his workshop, holding a couple of wooden boxes. Ryu Eunha watches him with a weirdly intense look in her eyes. He ignores her and heads straight for the furnace to get started. A stone block gets dumped into a vat of water. He seals the lid tight to keep the pressure in. Saehoon locks his focus entirely on the task at hand. He pulls a piece of material out of the quenching bucket. It's time to head back to the heat. Red mana starts swirling around his hand as he prepares the forge. He channels the energy while Eunha watches from the back. Every movement is precise and calculated. He slams the hammer down on the glowing ore. Eunha just hangs around, looking a bit bored. Night falls over the massive academy building. She lets out a big yawn, probably wondering how much longer this is going to take. Saehoon's hand is steady as he keeps up the rhythm. He carefully manipulates the tools to shape the metal. Molten metal flows into the cast while she keeps watch. A smirk pulls at his lips, he knows he's nailed it. A flash of light signals the completion of the item. He catches his breath as a system message confirms he's acquired the black spirit thread skill. On the table sits the finished product, a set of sleek, black bracelets. He's pretty satisfied with how they turned out. Suddenly, a loud growl echoes through the room. Manhwa's stomach is betraying her. She's blushing hard, clearly embarrassed that her hunger just outed her. Saehoon just lets out a tired sigh. He gathers the bracelets together while she stares at the floor. He drops them into a bucket and slides it over to her. She picks one up, looking skeptical but definitely interested. Saehoon rests his chin on his hand, curious to see her reaction. She pops it into her mouth like it's a snack. He watches her chow down on literal metal without a second thought. To her surprise, it actually tastes amazing. He asks if she likes it, and she gives him a quick nod. Then she suddenly makes a move toward him. Before he can react, she's right in his face. Saehoon just gives her a knowing smile. The workshop stays quiet for a moment. Then she just scoops him up in a princess carry. She kicks off the ledge, mana flaring around her feet. They go flying straight out of the building. Another student watches from below as they soar across the night sky. Lee Saehoon sits in the back of the class, doing his best to look like an average student. Suddenly, the classroom door slams open, catching everyone off guard. Professor Regressor marches in, a massive guy with a red bandana and the kind of energy that screams hard work. He gives a casual wave, though the students already look like they're regretting coming to class. A student gets sent flying before the lecture even officially starts. The entire class is ordered out to the arena for some high-intensity training. Saehoon takes the lead immediately, leaving the other students gasping in the dust. Regressor keeps the pressure on, barking out orders for another 20 laps. He watches them struggle with a cold, analytical gaze. He starts telling the class about the legend of the Sword Breaker, a name that carries heavy respect. A terrifying image of a warrior who could shatter any blade flashes through Saehoon's mind. Regressor points toward the arena, wanting to see if anyone here has the grit to reach that level. Saehoon adjusts his ink spider bracelet, feeding it more mana to crank up the weight. The extreme physical strain is obvious, forcing him to lean over and catch his breath. He focuses his inner energy, forging his own body to handle the extra load. Regressor notices his persistence and calls him out for a quick demonstration. He draws a sword and offers it to Saehoon, wanting to test his actual combat skills. Saehoon takes the blade, quickly feeling out the weight and balance. They face off in the center of the arena, the tension in the air turning sharp. Saehoon launches forward with an overhead strike, moving with surprising speed. Regressor blocks it with a smirk, but he can clearly feel the raw power behind the hit. The two of them blur into a high-speed exchange, their blades clashing repeatedly. Saehoon's eye flashes as he reads every muscle movement from the instructor. He shifts his weight at the last second, sliding past the professor's guard. Regressor's eyes go wide as he realizes he's lost track of his opponent. A cold blade comes to a stop right against his throat. The rest of the class can only stare in shock as the F-rank student pins their instructor. Saehoon just plays it off, scratching his head like it was all just a lucky fluke. Later that afternoon, Saehoon heads over to the combat hall for his next session. He finds Ma Guangsu, a retired S-rank instructor, looking down at a blonde elite student named Jake Myers. Jake is on the floor, practically begging the old master for a lesson to prove his worth. He whispers about his family's reputation, trying to convince the master to take him on. Jake is desperate to be seen as more than just a failure compared to his sister. Ma Guangsu isn't interested in talk. He points directly at Saehoon. He decides to let the two of them settle it right now with a single wooden sword match. Jake gets into a perfect stance, the kind you only see from high-level prodigies. He charges in with everything he's got, determined to end this quickly. Saehoon stays calm, his grip tightening on the training weapon. He steps into the strike, moving with a fluid grace that shouldn't be possible. Jake's defense is shattered in an instant, his confidence turning to pure shock. Saehoon slams into him, ending the match before Jake can even blink. He looks down at his fallen opponent, his mind already set on his next move. Saehoon pins Jake to the floor, ending the match before the other students even realize what happened. He checks his ink spider bracelet, the blue mana light fading away as he powers it down. The device is still humming on his wrist, a sign of the intense strain it just put on his mana circuits. Jake stays on the floor for a moment, staring blankly at the ceiling in total disbelief. He looks at his own hands, struggling to accept that he was completely outplayed by someone he looked down on. Ma Guangsu watches from the sidelines with his arms crossed, his expression unreadable as he evaluates the two. Saehoon catches the instructor's eye, wondering if his performance showed too much of his past life skill. The master doesn't mince words, calling Jake's effort pathetic and leaving the boy speechless. Jake slowly pulls himself up, his face red with a mix of shame and frustration. But his mood flips instantly. He's looking at Saehoon like he just met his new idol. Ma Guangsu dismisses the class, though he can't stop thinking about the strange, familiar style he just witnessed. He draws a real blade and squares off against Saehoon, wanting to see if the boy's skill is the real deal. Saehoon lunges forward with a precision that catches even the old master off guard. Their blades meet with a heavy impact, sending a sharp ringing sound through the training hall. Ma Guangsu keeps his guard up, his sharp eyes focused on every detail of Saehoon's footwork. He's clearly annoyed, suspecting that Saehoon's style belongs to a master he used to know. Saehoon just plays it cool, adjusting his bracelet as if the device is doing all the work. He offers a respectful bow, ending the session before the conversation turns toward his training. As he walks away, Jake comes charging after him, eager to talk up to the guy who just humbled him. The boy is practically beaming, his previous arrogance replaced by a desperate need for a mentor. He holds out a formal black envelope with a red seal, insisting that Saehoon take it as a gift. Saehoon looks at it, his mind already drifting to his next target, the enchantment expert, Leah Claudel. He accepts the invitation with a smirk, knowing his plan is coming together perfectly. He heads out into the city, keeping a sharp eye on his surroundings as he makes his way through the crowd. He spots a girl with a long red braid and a lab coat, Leah Claudel, the mad scientist of the academy. She's deep in thought, muttering to herself as she stares at a set of blueprints. Saehoon stops right in front of her, his gaze locked on his next Bond target. She looks up, her eyes wide with a manic kind of curiosity that only geniuses have. Before she can scurry away, Saehoon grabs her wrist to get her full attention. She immediately latches onto his bracelet, her eccentric nature taking over as she starts drooling over the craftsmanship. A system alert chimes in his head, the bond with Leah Claudel has been successfully established. Her profile lights up in his mind, showing her as the frantic, brilliant ally he needs for his equipment. They head to a local shop called Bread Sandwich to talk business over a quick meal. Leah is already in a trance, inspecting the ink spider bracelet with the intensity of a diamond cutter. Saehoon just sips his drink while she goes on a wild, high-speed rant about mana conductivity. She eventually settles down, looking at him with a serious expression that hints at her true potential. Their talk is cut short when a man with short dark blue hair and a sharp gaze walks up to the table. Leah points him out with a grin, clearly knowing exactly who the newcomer is. This is Yeom Song-ha, better known as the Mad Dog, a martial artist who's currently hitting a massive wall in his training. He stands there looking stiff and uncomfortable, the weight of his failures hanging heavy on his shoulders. He lets out a long, weary sigh, looking like a man who's at the absolute end of his rope. He looks up, his eyes sharp but filled with a hidden desperation he can't quite hide. Saehoon looks down, resting his hand on his forehead as he thinks of a way to solve the Mad Dog's problem. Yeom stands silently while Leah adjusts her glasses, waiting to see what the protagonist's next move will be. Leah offers a bright, curious smile, clearly finding the whole situation quite entertaining. Saehoon reflects on the allies he's gathered, knowing that each one is vital for his long-term plans. They arrive at a secluded street, where Leah looks around with a surprised expression as Saehoon prepares a field. Yeom Song-ha stands in the center of the road, his internal mana flickering out of control like a glitching image. From the shadows, Saehoon and Leah watch the martial artist struggle to keep his power in check. Saehoon reaches out his hand, his bracelet glowing as he begins to manipulate the surrounding energy. He summons 3 spectral blue wolves, sending them lunging forward to test Yeom's defenses. Leah watches in awe as Saehoon controls the mana threads with the precision of a master puppeteer. He holds up a black bond stone to channel his power, focusing his will on the task at hand. A red system window appears as the Gluttony Iron Bond imprint is activated, bathing Saehoon in a powerful aura. He charges forward with incredible speed, a glowing white magic circle forming around his fist. Saehoon delivers a direct punch to Yeom, intending to force the martial artist's blocked mana to flow. The impact is massive, sending a visible shockwave through the air and distorting the nearby buildings. Yeom falls to his knees, his breathing heavy but his mana finally beginning to stabilize. As evening falls over the academy, Saehoon prepares for a meeting that will secure his future resources. He enters a private room where Kim In-cheol, a legendary veteran hunter, is waiting behind a podium. A red bond stone sits in a display box on the podium, its light reflecting off the surrounding wood. Saehoon approaches the old man with a respectful but unwavering gaze. He makes his proposal with a polite smile, confident that he can offer something the veteran truly needs. Kim In-cheol looks down at the gem, his experienced eyes recognizing its incredible quality. Saehoon remains calm and composed, knowing the old hunter is carefully weighing his words. The veteran's expression turns fierce, his legendary aura flaring up like a pillar of fire. He eventually agrees to Saehoon's terms, acknowledging the young man's potential with a curt nod. They seal the deal with a firm handshake, a surge of blue energy connecting them as the bond is formed. System boxes confirm the extraction of the bond from Kim In-cheol, marking another successful recruitment. Later that night, Saehoon sits alone in his dorm room, surrounded by a peaceful silence. He holds the red bond stone in his hand, feeling the immense power contained within the crystal. He prepares to absorb the energy, his expression turning serious as he begins the difficult process. Red mana erupts around him while a strange mechanical device beams forbidden knowledge into his mind. He endures the intense strain with gritted teeth, his entire body glowing with a fierce red light. A notification appears, confirming that he has acquired the S-grade skill, Spirit Body Smithing Magic. Saehoon checks his status window, noting the improvements to his physical stats despite his exhaustion. Leah finds him on the floor the next morning, looking completely drained from his late-night training session. She gives him a cheerful smile, reminding him that they have a very important estate auction to attend today. Saehoon pulls himself together, a confident and determined look returning to his eyes. He stands up in his room, ready to take on whatever challenges the new day brings. The pair travels to a beautiful rural area, walking down a dirt path that leads toward a grand estate. Saehoon is surprised by the size of the event, seeing a large number of people gathered in the distance. Leah leads the way through the gates, her excitement growing as they approach the main building. She's completely taken aback by the bustling crowd, her mouth open in shock as she takes in the scale of the gathering. The shopkeeper, an elderly master smith with her gray hair in a neat bun, watches the two students with a skeptical and weary expression. Saehoon maintains a polite and knowing smile, while Leah looks on with a defiant pout, clearly unimpressed by the master's attitude. They walk further into the cluttered workshop, a space filled with sacks of ore, pottery, and various crafting tools. Leah is in the middle of a frantic explanation, trying to convince the skeptical woman of their revolutionary crafting theories. The master smith makes a broad, dismissive gesture with her hand, finding it hard to believe such young students could possess true skill. Not one to be underestimated, Saehoon and Leah both grab a mundane frying pan, ready to prove their mastery through a live demonstration. Leah focuses her mana, leaning over the workbench as she prepares to apply a complex enchantment to the simple kitchen tool. She draws a glowing magical sigil on the pan, the metal erupting in a brilliant light as her superior enchantment technique takes hold. With intense focus, she continues to infuse the object with her magic, the golden aura of her power radiating throughout the small workshop. Saehoon watches his partner with a proud smile, his eyes reflecting his satisfaction with her flawless enchantment work. He moves to a sharpening station, his eyes turning cold and focused as he prepares to refine a dull kitchen knife. He gives a small, determined nod, his mind already calculating the perfect rhythmic motion needed to achieve a transcendent edge. He grips the handle of the knife with a firm hand, his ink spider bracelet visible on his wrist as he begins his work. With a confident smirk, he checks the alignment of the blade, his movements reflecting decades of future knowledge and experience. He sharpens the knife on a whetstone with incredible speed and precision, his hands moving so smoothly they seem like a blur. He finishes the process with a single, expert stroke, the blade now so sharp it seems to hum with latent energy. The shopkeeper watches him with a look of pure shock, a bead of sweat forming on her forehead as she realizes she's witnessing a miracle. Saehoon presents the finished product to her, the polished metal reflecting his calm and unwavering gaze. He gives a satisfied smile, knowing that his display of skill has completely shattered the veteran's initial skepticism. A sudden, sharp sound echoes through the workshop as the front door is thrown open with a loud bang. Leah quickly grabs Saehoon's arm and begins to pull him toward the exit, dismissing the stunned silence of the shopkeeper as mere crankiness. The elderly smith is left standing alone in the middle of her shop, her mind still struggling to process the impossible talent she just witnessed. A boisterous man wearing a flashy purple pinstripe suit bursts into the room, his loud laugh filling the space as he makes a grand entrance. The master smith turns to face the new arrival, her expression of shock quickly turning into one of profound annoyance. Morning light filters through the large windows of the academy. Lee Saehoon walks through the courtyard with Leah Claudel, a girl in a white lab coat with messy reddish hair tied in a long braid. Saehoon wonders if he'll finally run into one of the three dogs today, while Ma Guangsu watches him closely from the background. Leah is talking a mile a minute, clearly obsessed with whatever they're discussing. Saehoon stops her by holding out a small object for her to see. Suddenly, a dark, heavy energy begins to swirl around her as she looks at it. Her eyes widen in shock behind her thick glasses as the pressure hits her. She grips her small knife with trembling hands, feeling the change. The blade begins to pulse with an intense, crimson light. Leah watches in awe as Saehoon takes the weapon from her hand. He holds the knife as red mana flows over his fingers like liquid fire. He explains that applying the technique this way changes everything. Saehoon lets go of the blade, letting it drop toward the stone floor. The tip of the knife slices effortlessly into the hard surface. It sinks in deep, guided by the flow of the crimson flame mana. Lee's jaw drops, her eyes sparkling with pure academic excitement. She lunges forward and clings to his arm, completely losing her cool. Saehoon just sighs and hands her a stack of heavy black materials. She jumps for joy, holding the new materials like their treasures. A system window confirms he successfully extracted a bond from Leah Claudel. Saehoon gives a small, satisfied smirk. His plan is working perfectly. Later at the arena, the crowd is buzzing with anticipation for the upcoming match. Erika Inoue follows closely behind Saehoon as they find their seats. She notices how focused he is on the fighters down on the field. One of the combatants gets ready as wind mana swirls around his legs. Two figures face off in the center of the massive stadium arena. Aria Myers steps into the spotlight, looking every bit the cold, untouchable genius. She brushes her blonde hair back, looking completely bored by the challenge. She flashes a mocking smile, fully confident in her overwhelming strength. Up in the stands, Saehoon and Erika watch her every movement. Her opponent stands silhouetted against the bright lights, spear at the ready. It's Yeom Song-ha, and his eyes are glowing with a fierce, determined light. He unleashes a massive wave of flames as he swings his spear. Arya doesn't even move, watching the fire come at her with a calm expression. She parries the strike, and the impact sends a shockwave through the air. Song-ha grinds his teeth, frustrated that his raw power isn't landing. Arya tightens her grip on the hilt of her sword. Her eyes begin to glow with a sharp, golden intensity. A ring of refined fire mana swirls around her as she prepares her next move. Song-ha lunges forward again, pouring everything he has into a fierce attack. His hands tremble from the strain of holding back the massive energy. He charges ahead with a desperate look, trying to break through the genius's defense. A blade suddenly glides past his neck. Saehoon stops, feeling the cold edge of a sword pressed against his throat. Arya Myers looks down at him with a superior smile, her blonde hair catching the light. The huge arena goes quiet as everyone watches the lopsided confrontation. Without saying a word, Saehoon just turns and walks away. Arya giggles, finding his lack of reaction amusingly pathetic. She's obnoxious, he mutters to himself as he heads back to Erika. Arya watches him leave, her expression shifting to something more thoughtful. In the reflection of her golden eyes, she's already memorized his face. Later that day, Saehoon takes a seat on the steps of one of the academy buildings. His mind drifts to the mad dog, Yom Songha, who was a legendary warrior in his previous life. He hears footsteps behind him and looks back. His expression remains flat as he recognizes the person approaching. It's Jake Myers, the elite student who is always looking for a fight. Mana begins to pool in Saehoon's palm, glowing with an intense white light. He gives a small, taunting smirk, inviting the challenge. They stand off in the middle of a park, the trees rustling around them. Jake lunges forward, his movements a blur of pure speed. A fist clenches, ready to deliver a powerful mana-infused strike. Jake throws a punch, but Saehoon catches it right in the center of his palm. A huge explosion of energy rocks the area as their powers collide. They trade blows in a high-speed exchange that lights up the garden. Another massive burst of light forces them both to back off. Saehoon takes a deep breath, letting the mana settle back into his body. Jake is panting, his face covered in scuff marks and dirt from the clash. He's shocked that a low-ranking student is pushing him this hard. He roars and unleashes a dark purple aura, finally getting serious. His eyes glow with raw power as he enters a full combat state. He delivers a flying kick, but Saehoon is already countering with a low strike. Saehoon's focus is perfect, his eyes tracking Jake's every muscle twitch. The impact of their collision sends out a massive shockwave. Saehoon grabs Jake's fist mid-air, pinning him in place. Jake grinds his teeth, struggling against the iron-like grip. They finally call it a draw, both of them drenched in sweat. Saehoon stands straight, looking like he could go for another 10 rounds. Jake looks at him with newfound respect, even if he doesn't want to admit it. Saehoon turns and starts walking away through the trees. His eyes are cold as he reflects on his past experiences with the Myers family. Jake asks him why he has such a problem with his sister, Arya. Saehoon remembers the Arya from the future, the sword saint who stood proudly in her silver plate. She was a hero who walked alone toward the gates of hell itself. A legendary warrior with glowing wings and a blade that could cut through anything. Saehoon looks down at his desk with a small, knowing smirk. A small, rotund man with a white mustache and a top hat suddenly rolls into the room on a motorized platform. Saehoon stands up from his seat, ready to address the unusual instructor. Saehoon stands before the class, his dark hair falling over his eyes as he listens to the murmurs about his appearance. The eccentric professor adjusts his monocle and gestures with his cane as he speaks to the students. The rest of the class, including the elite Jake Myers, watches with interest as the lesson begins. Saehoon sits back down, his expression calm and focused despite the tense atmosphere in the lecture hall. The other students are clearly on edge, whispering to each other about the sudden change in the curriculum. A set of heavy mana shackles sits on the table, glowing with a faint, pulsing blue light. The professor points his cane toward the whiteboard, explaining the intricacies of mana manipulation. He demonstrates by gathering a swirl of red energy around his fingertips. Yom Songha, the aggressive student known as the Mad Dog, is suddenly engulfed in rings of intense fire mana. Jake Myers and his classmates stare in disbelief at the raw power being displayed. The professor holds up a small black device with glowing indicators, monitoring the mana output of the students. Saehoon stands firm, facing the pressure from both the instructor and his competitive peers. Jake Myers steps forward with a cocky grin, clearly trying to assert his dominance over the room. He tries to introduce himself to Saehoon, but he's immediately shut down with a cold, "Get lost." Saehoon doesn't even spare him a glance, his mind already on his next goal. Leaving the classroom behind, Saehoon walks through the academy halls with his arms crossed. He is followed by another student who seems hesitant to approach him. He stops for a moment, his eyes narrowing as he senses a shift in the mana around him. His path leads him deeper into the academy's facilities, toward the specialized workshops. He enters a large forge where several other students are already working on their projects. Saehoon immediately heads for a furnace, the orange glow of the fire reflecting in his eyes. Inside the furnace, a crucible of molten metal is heating up to a brilliant, white-hot temperature. Stripped down to a simple black shirt, Saehoon begins the arduous process of smithing. Nearby, Erika Inoue watches from the shadows, her eyes wide with surprise at his technique. Saehoon reaches into the flames, his hand wreathed in a protective layer of golden mana. He steps down on the bellows with rhythmic precision, fanning the fire to its absolute limit. His eyes glow with an intense red light as he activates his unique Truth of Iron skill. He successfully forms rings of concentrated fire mana, presenting them to the stunned Yom Songha. A mystical crest appears in the air, the symbol of a flame encased in a circle of darkness. A massive burst of heat and light fills the forge as the process reaches its climax. Saehoon tells Songha that they will continue their specialized training tomorrow. He rubs his chin thoughtfully, already planning out the next phase of the Mad Dog's rehabilitation. He places a steady, encouraging hand on the shoulder of his new student. Saehoon's gaze is sharp as he focuses on a new material he's managed to acquire. He meets with the eccentric Leah Claudel, who is gleefully holding a dark sphere with a glowing red core. They stand in a private training room, ready to test the properties of the mysterious object. Later, Saehoon and Songha arrive at the entrance of the Flame Flower Gate, the martial arts sect Songha belongs to. Saehoon holds up the dark sphere, which pulses with an ominous red light in his hand. He carefully examines the object, knowing that this crimson fire jade is the key to his own body's transformation. Saehoon finishes his work on the spears, the red gems pulsing with energy. Done, he declares simply. Yom Songha holds the twin spears, feeling the strange, new power resonating from the shafts. Saehoon points at him, giving clear instructions on how to handle the enhanced weapons. Energized by the upgrade, Songha begins to practice, his movements becoming a blur of fire and steel. The heat from the spearhead intensifies as Songha pushes his mana into the weapon, his focus absolute. Saehoon watches the display with a critical eye, noting every detail of the mad dog's performance. Songha stops for a moment, examining the spear with a newfound sense of respect for Saehoon's skill. Saehoon explains the mechanics behind the enchantment, a confident smile on his face. With a roar, Songha unleashes a powerful strike, the air itself seeming to ignite around him. He moves with a grace and ferocity that far exceeds his previous capabilities. The intensity of the training leaves Songha slightly winded, but his eyes are filled with determination. They stand together in the courtyard of the Flame Flower Gate, the sun beginning to set over the horizon. Saehoon takes a seat, looking completely at ease while Songha stands tall with his spear. Songha's thoughts drift back to his childhood, to the legacy of the gate and the master who raised him. Saehoon rests his chin on his hand, his gaze fixed on a future that only he can see. He envisions the great demon realms, the nightmare landscapes that will one day consume the world. I intend to enter all those demon realms, Saehoon states calmly, his voice carrying a weight of absolute certainty. Songha stares at him in shock, while Saehoon casually makes a gesture of confidence. A hand grips the spear tightly, the leather wrapping creaking under the pressure. Songha levels his weapon, his resolve hardening as he listens to Saehoon's ambitious plan. Then I will kill the demon gods, Saehoon continues, his shadow seemingly transforming into a legendary warrior of the future. He holds up the crimson fire jade, the small orb glowing like a miniature sun between his fingers. A wild, ecstatic grin spreads across Saehoon's face as the true work, the forging of his own soul, is about to begin. Shadows stretch across the floor as the promotion match is about to kick off. Saehoon stands back, letting his student Yom Songha take center stage against the instructor. Instructor Gang Hyenan looks way too comfortable, standing there with his hands behind his back like this is a joke. He just laughs off whatever Songha said, probably thinking this kid has zero chance. Saehoon doesn't miss a beat, offering a fake apology for being momentarily confused by the guy's arrogance. He gestures for the fight to start, looking like he knows exactly how this is going to end. Songha's eyes go cold. He's clearly done with the trash talk. He tells the instructor to shut up and get to the point already. Gang finally drops into a stance, reminding him that the only way to get promoted is to win or at least draw. Songha's spear starts glowing with an intense heat as he prepares to unload. The instructor just keeps smirking, still not realizing he's about to get hit by a freight train. Songha charges, his spear trailing a massive, swirling fire behind him. Gang's face drops the moment he feels the raw pressure coming off that strike. Songha is literally glowing with power, proving that his Mad Dog nickname is well earned. He lunges forward, swinging the flaming spear with everything he's got. The two clash in a blinding explosion of fire and sparks. The instructor tries to hold his ground, but the heat is just too much to handle. Everything goes up in smoke as the impact shakes the entire arena. Gang stares in pure shock as his defenses are completely bypassed. From the flames, a dark energy manifests into the shape of a roaring beast's head. The instructor's spear head is snapped clean off, ending the match right there. It's over in a flash, leaving Gang kneeling on the mat in total disbelief. Songha rests his spear on his shoulder, looking back at Saehoon who's watching from the sidelines. The kid knows he nailed it, and Saehoon looks pretty satisfied with how things turned out. Flashback to the other disciples who always looked down on Songha for his crude style. Saehoon walks out to pick up the broken pieces of the spear, always looking for materials. Songha admits that Saehoon made the whole victory sound way easier than it actually was. Saehoon just smiles, he knows he's just getting started with this rehabilitation project. Songha closes his eyes, finally feeling like he's mastered the balance he was missing. He grips his weapon tight, now 100% loyal to the guy who fixed him. They head out, with Songha jokingly complaining about how close that spear tip got to him. The scene shifts to a fancy auction where Saehoon's newest creation is the main event. In the audience, the sword Saint Arya Myers sits with Professor Ma Guangsu, waiting for the reveal. Professor Kim In-cheol is also watching closely, curious about the quality of Saehoon's work. The auctioneer, Michael, has a smug look on his face like he's got a dirty secret. A hand reaches out to finally uncover the masterpiece blade sitting on the stage. A student steps up to test it, swinging the sword down with a massive overhead strike. The blade slices right through the unbreakable, white tiger cloth like it was made of paper. The whole room goes quiet as the supposedly impossible feat is performed effortlessly. Behind the scenes, the high rollers are already scrambling to place their bids. Arya and the professor are stunned, they've never seen a blade this sharp in their lives. Saehoon explains that every part of a monster, from the fur to the bones, has unique properties to exploit. Erika Inoue watches the auction intently, her hand to her chin as she evaluates the competition. Beside her, Lee Saehoon leans back with a confident smirk, clearly enjoying the chaos he's created. The auctioneer slams his gavel down as one of the earlier swords sells for a modest 4 million won. The stage is set for the main event as the announcer gestures toward the masterpiece blade. A brilliant white light erupts from the sword the moment the demonstration begins. With one clean strike, the weapon slices right through the reinforced target. The test wielder finishes his swing, looking stunned by how effortlessly the blade cut through. Jake Myers watches from the front row, his expression turning serious as he senses the blade's power. The white light longsword continues to hum with an intense, holy-looking aura on display. Saehoon steps up to the podium, immediately commanding the attention of the entire hall. He grips the hilt, ready to show everyone exactly why this weapon is in a league of its own. He presents the blade to the crowd, explaining the unique craftsmanship behind its extreme sharpness. A white aura swirls around Saehoon as he channels mana to demonstrate the sword's peak potential. Erika's eyes widen as she senses the incredible density of the mana flowing through the steel. Saehoon holds up a small, jagged crystal, the bond stone he's about to use for a mid-show upgrade. He takes a stance, the air around him crackling with sudden, violent power. The blade bites into the unbreakable Seo Jumpo cloth like it's absolute nothing. It passes through effortlessly, leaving a perfect, clean edge that shocks the audience. Saehoon finishes the strike with a flourish, leaving the hall in stunned silence. A system window confirms the sword has evolved to rare rank, gaining a powerful sharpness skill. He points out that the sword doesn't just cut, it massively enhances the wielder's own mana. The bidding war explodes instantly, with paddles flying up across the entire room. Jake jumps in with a massive leap to 200 million won, trying to crush the competition. Erika doesn't even blink as she raises her paddle, calmly bumping the price to 210 million. The auctioneer is practically screaming as the numbers climb toward record-breaking levels. From the back of the hall, a mysterious figure watches the bidding frenzy from the shadows. Jake looks completely stressed out as a woman beside him smiles at the siblings' rivalry. Ryu Eunha, the dean, watches with a predatory gaze, her eyes glowing with interest in the new blade. Jake facepalms, already dreading the reaction from his sister for spending this much money. Saehoon just stands there, looking every bit like the mastermind who planned this whole thing. Later on, the dean walks into a private lounge, her sword cane tapping rhythmically against the floor. Saehoon looks over from his seat, not at all surprised that she came looking for him. She sheds her coat, ready to get down to business and discuss his unusual talents. She flips through her schedule, looking like she has some very big plans for the Academy's new star. Saehoon gives a small, knowing smirk, happy to play along with her games for the time being. Elsewhere, a man with a cross-eye patch looks on. Some new player is entering the board. Jake stands at attention in a bright, sunlit office, looking more than a little nervous. Arya Myers, the sword saint, greets him with a sweet but dangerously sharp smile. The two siblings meet in her private office to discuss the recent auction incident. The scale of her luxurious office highlights just how high her status really is. A close-up of Arya's eye shows her intense, cold focus. She isn't someone you want to fail. Jake clenches his fists, looking like he's ready to do whatever it takes to redeem himself. Arya Myers watches with a condescending gaze, her presence alone enough to fill the entire office with tension. She gives a faint, mocking smirk, as if she's already bored by the conversation. Saehoon walks away from the encounter, thinking to himself that Arya is just as obnoxious as he remembers from his past life. In a quiet corner of the academy, Saehoon is greeted by a strange, tiny figure in a top hat sitting on a stone pedestal. The little man, Sam Jayan, peers through his monocle, evaluating Saehoon with ancient, discerning eyes. Images of a legendary flame wheel spear technique flash through Saehoon's mind as he senses the spirit's hidden power. In his mind's eye, he sees a master warrior performing a devastating, fiery strike with incredible precision. Samjayan nods approvingly, his small hands gripping the two miniature spears he carries as emblems of his legacy. Saehoon bows respectfully to the small spirit, acknowledging the weight of the ancient techniques he's about to inherit. Later, Saehoon walks through the academy grounds with two new spears strapped to his back, checking his messages. He arrives at the training hall, catching the attention of Jake Myers, who was already waiting there for him. Jake greets him with a competitive laugh, clearly eager to test himself against Saehoon's new weapons. Saehoon drops his training bag, ready to get started with their high-stakes sparring session. He pulls out a heavy, high-grade blacksmith's hammer, surprising Jake with the unusual choice of equipment. Jake's jaw drops in shock. He expected a traditional duel, not whatever unconventional training Saehoon has in mind. The two students face off in the center of the gym, Saehoon already brandishing his twin spears. Jake clenches his fists as blue mana begins to surge violently around his body, preparing his defense. He takes a firm combat stance, the light mana crackling with intensity as he readies himself for the first strike. Saehoon's gaze sharpens as he focuses on the flow of energy, his fingers tightening around the shafts of the spears. He stands perfectly still for a heartbeat, the atmosphere in the room shifting as his own mana begins to hum. With a quick, decisive movement, he readies his weapon, the metal gleaming under the gym's fluorescent lights. Saehoon makes the first move, his spear blurring into a series of lightning-fast thrusts. Jake barely manages to parry the onslaught, the sound of their clashing mana echoing through the training hall. Saehoon's eyes remain cold and analytical, tracking every minor mistake in Jake's movements. Jake smirks through the pressure, his competitive fire fully ignited by the intensity of the fight. Suddenly, Saehoon shifts his technique, the spearhead erupting into a fan of brilliant, scorching flames. Jake is forced to execute a desperate dive as a trail of blue light mana follows his hasty retreat. Jake looks up from the floor, sweat dripping down his face as he realizes the massive gap in their abilities. A massive, ghostly red warrior appears behind Saehoon, the true, manifest form of the Sanjayan spirit. Saehoon stands in perfect synchronization with the phantom, their combined presence overwhelming. The spirit finally acknowledges Saehoon as its true master, lending him its ancient, scorched earth power. Jake grunts as the sheer weight of the mana in the room makes it difficult to even breathe. Saehoon swings the spear in a wide, flaming arc that leaves scorched marks across the gym's floor. He lunges forward again, the movement so incredibly fast it creates a vacuum in the air around them. Jake's eyes widen in terror as he realizes his current defense is completely useless against this strike. He is sent flying backward, his boots skidding across the wood as he struggles to stay upright. Saehoon continues the relentless pressure, now channeling a dark, purplish mana through his weapon. Jake is completely overwhelmed, his mana shield shattering under the sheer physical force of the technique. He shouts out in pure frustration as his mana flickers and fails, signaling the end of his endurance. Bright flashes of clashing energy fill the center of the room during the final moments of the spar. Jake makes one last desperate attempt to manifest a shield of light mana to block the finishing blow. Saehoon watches as a beam of blue light cuts through the room, officially bringing their duel to a close. Saehoon looks on with a confident smile, his eyes fixed on his opponent as the heat of battle lingers in the air. Standing amidst the chaos, Saehoon raises his dual spears in a powerful stance, the ground scarred by arcs of dark energy. A colossal explosion of mana erupts between the two combatants, blue and crimson forces clashing with earth-shattering intensity. The sheer power of the impact fills the training hall, the ceiling reflecting the blinding flashes of light. Saehoon's face is a mask of calm focus as blue mana flickers around him like a protective shroud. Jake Myers stares back, sweat on his brow and a look of stunned realization as the red glow of Saehoon's technique looms over him. The blue light begins to fade from Saehoon's hand as he brings the intense exchange to a controlled stop. The fight ends in an instant. Saehoon stands victorious, his spear held steady against Jake's neck in the silent hall. Saehoon looks on, totally unfazed, while Jake Myers seems to be struggling to process what just happened. Jake rubs his neck, looking a bit worse for wear. He's starting to realize he bit off more than he could chew with this guy. He stares down at the ground, clearly frustrated. It's a bitter pill to swallow for someone who's used to being the top dog. Saehoon isn't letting him off the hook yet. He's holding a massive blacksmith hammer and offering Jake a deal that feels more like a threat. Jake tries to play it cool with a nervous grin, but the sweat on his face tells a different story. He's completely cornered. Saehoon gestures calmly as he explains the terms. He's already treating Jake like a tool he's about to refine. Jake is still looking lost, but Saehoon just tells him to stay put and watch what a real master can do. Suddenly, the room fills with a dark, heavy pressure. Saehoon raises his hammer, eyes glowing with mana as he prepares a strike. He slams the hammer down with a massive shockwave. The impact is so intense it practically vibrates through the entire training room. Swirls of blue mana flow toward Saehoon's hand. He's performing a high-level technique that most students couldn't even dream of. Jake flinches back in terror, his arm raised as if to protect himself from the sheer weight of the mana in the room. He stares at Saehoon with wide eyes, looking like he's just seen a ghost. Any confidence he had left is officially gone. A system message pops up, confirming that the bond with Jake Myers has been established. Level 1, but it's a start. Saehoon gives a satisfied smirk. Everything is moving right along according to his plan to rebuild the future's failed heroes. He looks off to the side, his mind already calculating the next move in his grand design. A shadow falls over the doorway as Professor Ma Guangsu steps in. His presence alone shifts the whole mood of the hallway. The professor's sharp gaze fixes on Saehoon. He's an old pro, and he can smell something unusual about this kid. Ma Guangsu walks past a dazed Jake, who's still trying to figure out what just hit him back in the training room. Later, Saehoon is back at it, training with a blade this time. Ma Guangsu is watching from the shadows, intrigued. The professor stands with his arms crossed, silently analyzing every movement Saehoon makes. The kid's form is a little too perfect. He picks up some of the materials Saehoon worked on. The quality is insane, it's like the metal was forged by someone with decades of experience. Saehoon is pushing his limits, concentrating so hard that mana is literally sparking around his body. Ma Guangsu watches the mana flows with a look of growing suspicion. This isn't just talent, this is something far more dangerous. Saehoon wipes the sweat from his brow and looks right back at the professor. He knows he's being tested. Ma Guangsu turns his back, his mind racing through dark theories. He's seen things like this before, and it rarely ends well. He starts thinking about the possibility of a doppelganger, a demon that can perfectly mimic human abilities. To him, Saehoon is a prime suspect. He imagines a figure in a suit standing over a defeated warrior, a clear sign of the kind of betrayal these demons are known for. He flashes back to a fierce battle from his past, remembering the raw power of a scarred warrior who fought like a literal mad dog. Ma Guangsu closes his eyes for a moment, weighing his suspicion against the reality of the student standing in front of him. Saehoon remains perfectly still, keeping his expression neutral as he waits for the professor's next move. Suddenly, the professor lets out a loud laugh. It seems he's decided to find the whole situation more entertaining than threatening. He laughs so hard his face turns red, while Saehoon just stares at him, completely deadpan. With one last chuckle, Ma Guangsu heads out, leaving Saehoon alone in the training room with his thoughts. As Saehoon walks through the hall, his phone starts vibrating. Someone is trying to get a hold of him. It's a call from Yom Song-ha. The guy Saehoon's been waiting to hear from is finally reaching out. He picks up the phone, ready to hear how his first rehabilitation project is coming along. Saehoon listens with a slight, knowing smile. Everything is proceeding exactly as he predicted, but as the conversation goes on, his expression hardens. It sounds like things just got a little more complicated. He hangs up and stares at the screen for a second. The game is changing, and he needs to stay ahead of it. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocks a nearby building, sending fire and smoke billowing into the sky. Saehoon looks over his shoulder, his eyes wide as he realizes something big just went down. That wasn't on his schedule. The camera cuts to a girl with silver hair and chilling blue eyes. It looks like the explosive dog has finally made her entrance. Saehoon remembers the story. 6 months ago, during a spar, a girl's wand exploded, causing permanent damage to her mana circuits. He realizes that if he can catch her at the right time, he might be able to fix more than just her weapon. He's already planning his next move. Jake comes running up, looking much more cooperative now. Saehoon calls out to him, ready to put his new tool to work. Saehoon shows him a report on his phone about the accident. It names the student responsible and the creator of the faulty wand. He asks Jake if he knows these two people, testing the blonde's connections within the academy. Jake looks surprised by the question. He didn't expect Saehoon to be interested in high-level academy drama like this, but as he reads the names, a big grin spreads across his face. It seems he knows exactly who they're talking about. He laughs, clearly amused by the idea of Saehoon getting involved with such notorious figures. It's right up his alley. Saehoon gives a small, confident smirk. With Jake's help, infiltrating the hospital to find his next target is going to be a walk in the park.